Yeah, good stuff, Johnny Mac. Let's dive into this game this weekend, Eagles-Packers. I want to ask you about Jalen Hurts and what you're expecting them to do. Right, I did an interview last night for the great people who listen down at Screwballs. We have a Thursday night live show down at Screwballs, and I joined by phone last night at around 6:30, and I was talking with Henry Racich, who's the host of the show, and I said, Jalen Hurts coming back 3 weeks off. I would expect him to let him get into his groove, kind of work Saquon into the game early, get the running game going, let Jalen get out there, get the jitters out, whatever is out there, and then let him start throwing the ball. And he pushed back and he said, I think they're going to do the opposite. I think they're going to come out and they're going to do what they did in the Steelers game, where they just give them these easy, quick throws, get them in rhythm early and often, throw that pill early, and then rely on Saquon late. And I said, well, that's probably what my friend John McMullen would tell me. John, how do you see this coming into this game with Jalen Hurts? What's the right approach to get him back in? I know you said you don't have any issue on rust, but you have had a quarterback that's been out for a couple of weeks. What's the best approach to get him comfortable in the game?
Yeah, I like that approach. I want to give them easy throws. I want to get quarterbacks in a rhythm. I talk about it all the time. I think that's the way to do it. I think the difference now between the run the ball people, I think, the goal is to pass it to set up the run. It used to be run to set up the pass. And then you close it out with Saquon, which has been generally the Eagles' formula. They've been a much better second half rushing team than first half rushing team. The problem is they haven't been a good first half passing team for most of the year. And that started early in the season. It started to change a little bit in that Pittsburgh game. And also, people forget because he got so hurt early, also early in that Washington game as well. So it looked like they may have solved the issue. And now we have the long layoff, or somewhat lengthy layoff of 2 weeks. One legitimate, difficult to pass the protocol in 1 week. The other, they begged off, more of a rest type situation, even though they would never admit it. So it wouldn't surprise me if he wasn't the sharpest coming out, but that's been the entire season. So I'm not going to panic if that's the case. But if you can get some easy completions early, I say that for every quarterback. Get it done. Get them in a rhythm. Get them going. The last thing you want to do is, what Green Bay does. That's what I criticize Green Bay for. Right. They don't get their quarterback in a rhythm. I don't like it. Same thing with the Eagles when they don't do it.
Obviously both of these teams they don't start quick. We've talked about it all week on Birds 365, but I still if the Eagles start slow in this game and for whatever reason the Packers can get on the board, I think that's probably the biggest, not fear, but the biggest concern from an Eagles perspective coming into this game. I don't think you want to play this game from behind. Now, you pointed out Jordan Love and the Packers offense seems to do much better and move the ball much more efficiently when they're behind in games, when they're throwing the ball, I guess. So maybe it would be an advantage for the Packers to get behind in the game and just let Jordan Love start throwing it. But if I'm the Eagles, I got to get on the board early here and get a lead. I do not want to fall behind because, John, it's uncharted territory. The team has been so good this year and so dominant defensively and with the run.
No, I don't advocate. Yeah, I don't advocate playing from behind. That's one of, again, my criticisms of Matt LaFleur is, he needs a kick in the ass before he does anything. And that's not good. And they've lost games that they probably would have won if they just approached it correctly. I think their approach is poor. And that would obviously help the Eagles. The part that I pushed back on yesterday, and it's hard. You can't say, all right, let Josh Jacobs run for 105 yards, but not 130 yards or 150 yards. you can't play like that. You can't do that.
Right.
But I said from a lot, it's almost like you want them to do okay. You don't want them to do really poorly. You want them to do okay, but not too great. And that's the fine line you're talking about, because if they think, well, the running game's not clicking like we like, but it's still, we're doing some nice things, and they keep doing it, that's going to help the Eagles, if that makes sense. If they become more one-dimensional and they feel they have to throw the football, again, this all depends on Jordan Love's health as well, then it becomes, all right, can you make a play? Can CJ intercept it? Can you get the pass rush going? Because they're going to make some plays. They're going to make some plays in the passing game.
No doubt about it. So we'll see how the game plays out. I think the Packers are going to try and be doing the same thing, John. Get Jordan Love going early. I mean, you talked about it all week. They're a running team, but they still got a good quarterback, and having him going is going to be a key for them. Look, he dominated the Cowboys last year. Dominated them. Threw the ball all over the field, from inside the pocket, outside the pocket, you name it. He was slinging it around. I rewatched the game. I mentioned that. And I think that's going to be the Green Bay plan as well. So if you're Vic Fangio, what are you coming in trying to focus on to limit the ability of the Green Bay offense?
Well, I think they'll come in, focus on stopping Josh Jacobs, because A, it's what an old school coordinator does, and that's what Vic is. And B, right, that's what they do. So, that's why I say it's counterintuitive. That it's like, well, you can't tell your players, let him have a couple runs. You can't do that.
Who do you like in that matchup, Vic Fangio versus Matt LaFleur? I think Matt LaFleur is a good offensive mind.
I think that's a blowout in Vic's case.
Really, you're not high on Matt LaFleur?
No, not at all.
How come?
I don't think they play the right way. Like, how do you sit there with that team and watch that team for 17 games and play the way you play?
But is that a this year you don't like Matt LaFleur, or an overall you don't like Matt LaFleur?
Well, I've gone back and forth with Matt LaFleur. I did not give him a lot of credit when he first got there, because it was Aaron Rodgers' team. Aaron was still playing at a very high level. And basically you could just give the offense to him. And then, when they moved on and he started developing Love, I gave him a lot of credit. And now I'm back to the down. I do not like the way he has coached this season. Like, if he coaches the right way, they won 11 games. And they're not that good. They won 11 games. They won 11 games. And they lost to only Detroit and Philadelphia and Minnesota, and that's it until the Week 18 game, which I don't even think they were playing for some reason, against Chicago. So that's the one bad loss. But I don't know how much stock to put in that. So they won 11 games playing the way they play. And, I think if they play the way they should have played, they're probably at 13-14. So I think the coach has limited their upside this year.
I'll give you guys a really good quote from these two. So Vic Fangio and Matt LaFleur, they go back a little bit. Back in 2019, and this is courtesy of Dave Zangaro. And an ESPN story.
LaFleur's one of the guys who raves about Vic Fangio.
Yeah, he said they were asked which defense is the toughest to read and attack. LaFleur, Shanahan, and McVay all said Fangio's defense, and this was the quote from LaFleur. I think we listen to this, guys. This is good news for the Eagles defense. There are so many guys, and every system is different. But I look at Vic Fangio, just the fronts and the multiple looks you get from him. That's incredibly different. Shoot, Indianapolis last year, we knew exactly what they were going to do to us, and we didn't have a lot of success because they were so sound. They stuffed the run out of a two-safety defense and played extremely fast. That sounds a lot like the Philadelphia Eagles defense this year, Johnny Mac.
Yeah, I mean, everybody in the McVay Shanahan tree says Vic is the toughest to deal with, and it's been that way for years. Now, that was back, you said, in 2019.
Yeah, well, the story from ESPN, yep, was back in 2019 when
Yeah, they've been saying it.
right after
Now, the problem is to the point where they all hired guys to run Vic's scheme. Nick Sirianni's in this club as well, although
right.
he's not part of the club. So all these offensive minds hired somebody to run his scheme. So now he talked about those variable fronts. Nobody talked about, I've been talked about ad nauseum on Birds 365. Oh, they're playing a 3-4. No, they're not. No, they're not. How many times have I said this, Xander? They have a 5-man, they have a 50 front, a 40 front. Now Vic will even roll out a 6-man front, depending on the opponent. He was the first to do that, and it was unique. You know, as Matt LaFleur pointed out, you would know, like Tony Dungy. I don't want to pick on Tony, but he's the famous for the Tampa 2 defense, the cover 2 defense. You would know where Tampa was going to line up in July on every play.
Right.
So, you know, it became, all right, they're really good. They're really effective. They're really sound, as he pointed out against whatever, Indianapolis, I think he said. You know, you play really soundly, you play really well, you execute, you can still succeed. But then when Vic showed up with these different looks that nobody had ever seen before, I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? You know, and, you know, he backs it up with all these different zone coverages, quarters coverage, cover 3, might be cover 2, might be cover 6, might be what he calls cover 9, might be man principles. A lot of people say the Eagles are in man. No, they're not. They're in a quarters match zone with man principles.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting that Gary Cobb said that yesterday. I don't expect him to do what he said at all, really, in terms of the man defense.
Well, a lot of people think they're in man coverage because what it looks like to the naked eye is they're in man coverage in their zone. And then when the player leaves the zone, you're passing them off to the next zone. So it's really a zone, but a lot of people misconstrue it as man coverage. And they call it man match, you know, usually in quarters. But so anyway, it's very complicated defense, and that I've talked about a lot. It's the most amazing thing about this year to get the young players up to speed in that complicated defense. Now, from the difference between 2019 and 2024 is the good quarterbacks have seen it a boatload of times now. And it's become easier for them to decipher what's going on. And that's the natural evolution of defensive football. Somebody comes up with something,
right?
It works, everybody copies it, everybody sees it, and then it starts to shift in another direction. You remember I saying I was concerned there was the tipping point. But Vic has blown that up because they just play it better. But it isn't, you know, I saw Ryan Fitzpatrick talking about Flores' defense. He's kind of the same way because he does all this unique stuff nobody's ever seen, and he confuses people. And Ryan Fitzpatrick was saying, well, that's the worst matchup for them because Matthew Stafford knows what he's seeing.
Exactly.
Doesn't matter what you throw at him.
That works against a younger quarterback that's not as good as reading the defenses, right?
Exactly. So, you know, that's sort of the give and take about and they moved that game to Arizona, by the way.
Oh yeah, good. I'm happy you mentioned that. Yeah,
because of the wildfires, which are crazy.
Definitely prayers up, John. We have a big listening audience from California. I think it's our 5th or 6th highest state of viewership, behind Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, Florida, Texas, and California. I think California's 4 or 5 in there. So definitely prayers up for anybody out there, man. We hope everybody is safe. That's some crazy stuff going on out there.
Oh my Lord, it's awful.
Awful.
So I hope everybody out there is just, yeah, it's complete devastation. It's just terrible. But they, again, much lesser on when you're dealing with stuff like that. But they had to move the game to Arizona. That'll be the Monday night game. But back to Vic, I mean, yeah, his ability to teach it. But LaFleur and those guys, Shanahan, McVay, Sirianni's in the club, Kevin O'Connell, they've all said for years this is the most difficult scheme to deal with. And yeah, that's why Vic should be assistant coach of the year.
You think he'll get it? I think it might be Ben. Might be Ben Johnson again. People love
Well,
offense.
I'll tell you what. And again, I can't say who I vote for, but I think people who watch this show know who I voted for. If you look at what coach of the year is, they don't give it to Andy Reid because of expectations.
Right.
Everybody knew Ben Johnson had a great offense.
That's true. That's true.
Vic Fangio, we're all talking about, can he get this shithole defense to be middle of the road?
Well, that's why he is it in my book. I believe he should be it's just like I believe Kevin O'Connell should be the coach of the year because of the expectation. We knew the Lions were good. We knew the Chiefs were good. He took a backup quarterback and won 14 football games.
So I'm with you in the fact that Ben's probably going to win it. But if people looked at it the same way they look at head coach, and why wouldn't they? Then Vic's got to win. But we'll see.
John, let's go to the other side. We just talked about Fangio versus LaFleur. What do you think of the matchup of Kellen Moore versus Hafley? I think Hafley's done a really good job. You remember we talked about him early in the year when
it was a strange hire.
Yeah. It was a strange hire. Came out of college, we didn't know what to expect from him. Johnny's had a pretty good year, man. He's had a pretty good year as a first-year defensive coordinator. That defense is humming, top 10 in both categories, and a top 5 overall defense they closed up. So a good job by Jeff Hafley this year. Who do you give the advantage to in that matchup?
I haven't been impressed with the way the Eagles play offense either.
That's yeah.
And again, I know people aren't going to hear that correctly. They have a very good offense. I don't like the way they approach the game. Same with Green Bay. They approach it the same way. I don't like the way they approach the game. The Eagles have more talent, so I think that's they have more talent on offense that the Packers have on defense, so I think they have the advantage from that standpoint. I don't think they have an advantage from a coaching standpoint, unless you want to talk about the positional, Jeff Stoutland and things like that.
Right. Deeper into the staff.
Yeah. Yeah, they just have more talent. But I'm consistent. I don't like the way they play either. And people know that from watching this show. To have AJ Brown and DeMonte Smith, and I'm not talking about this game because AJ is going to be banged up, and Dallas Goedert when he's healthy, and all the weapons, and even Jahan Dotson. You saw people shitting on Jahan Dotson. He gets out there for one game, they give him a chance. He can make some plays. I'm not saying he's great, but he can make some plays. And even Kenny Gainwell and all their skill position talent to go along with Saquon Barkley. Shouldn't be as clunky as it is, but it is. And again, if people were honest with themselves and went back to the offseason, Kellen's going to do this. He's going to open up he's going to scheme
That's
people
what I
up.
said.
He's going to use emotion, blah, blah, blah. They never talk about it anymore. They go hide in the corner. They pretend they didn't say it.
Well, no, we just hide behind the excuse. Well, we have Saquon Barkley, so we run the ball all day. Like it's a kind of a shitty excuse. We've moved the goalpost a lot.
Oh, I moved the goalpost out of the stadium.
Yeah, we have. Most people won't admit that, but I will readily admit that I moved. Me personally, I've moved the goalpost. Coming into the year, John, I said Kellen Moore, traditional offense. Jalen's going to be throwing the ball all over the place. I can't wait to see what it looks like. I think Jalen's going to take the next step. Or running offense. I mean, I don't really think.
And by the way, I give Kellen more credit for that because he saw it wasn't working. and he scaled back, and they did what they did, and they won games. And the ultimate, if you win games, it doesn't matter how you do it. Everything's fine.
Yeah, it's true.
Until you get got. And if they get got, whether it's Detroit or anybody else down the road, then people will shit on it. But not until that point. But yeah, the goalposts have been moved. Most certainly, the goalposts have been moved.
Oh, it's definitely been moved. No doubt about it. John, I got a question, though. I mean, I know the offense hasn't been overly impressive this year in terms of the passing game, but who the hell on the Packers is going to cover A.J. Brown? Like, if we have Saquon going at all and you get any single coverage, which I think you're going to have a good chance to get a lot, who's going to cover? I mean, what are they going to, who's going to cover A.J. Brown? It comes down to Jalen getting the ball to him, but I think that's going to be a mismatch all night.
Well, if he's healthy, I don't know if he's going to. That might solve it. No, but AJ's always.
So you're concerned enough about this knee that you think AJ Brown might not have a big impact on this game.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. He took off a week and came back and couldn't practice, couldn't finish a practice, and then couldn't practice. I mean, what am I, crazy here?
No, you're not crazy.
When he's healthy, you always have that advantage. But that's with any, whether it's Jamar Chase or Jefferson, you do different things. You bracket them, you try to, nobody's going to cover them one-on-one. And you do different things in a normal situation. But yeah, if you're talking about, I think people get hyper focused on one-on-one matchups and coverage, and the vast majority of teams are in zone, the majority of time. So it's kind of most teams are smart enough to not. Occasionally you have a big time corner that can do it, but very rarely. There's maybe 5 guys in the league that can travel with big time receivers. But most of the time you zone them up. And then it becomes, A, do you communicate well? Do you bracket well? B, do the other people take advantage of their one-on-ones? And that's how you go about stopping a player like that. It's never about, put Carrington Valentine on A.J. Brown. They're going to zone him up if he starts cooking.
Right.
And try to do it that way. And then you have Xavier McKinney over the top, and who knows? Xavier's one of those. That's the player I'm most concerned with, because he's one of those guys that baits you and tries to make it look like, well, you got an opening here if you want to fit it in, and all of a sudden he closes and makes the big play. So yeah, I mean, and that's with any big time receiver. There's so little. They see so little man-to-man coverage. It's not even worth talking about. Like you saw it on Sunday night.
Is that all in the quarterback, John, or am I wrong to think that?
What do you mean?
Not identifying that.
No, the quarterbacks identify it. The quarterbacks know they're in zone. No, I think most fans don't realize a lot of times when guys are facing zone coverage, and then it becomes a play. Like when the play hits or when the play fails, it becomes the screenshot of where everybody is at that particular moment, not understanding that maybe the safety was over the top or blah, blah, blah. Those types of things. So, A.J. Brown doesn't see a lot of man coverage. Never does. There's
a lot of his deep plays this year that he did come in man coverage.
Yes and no. It depends on it depends on, a lot of times there's checks when we talk about when checks fail, like in Seattle last year. when they went off script, so to speak. Some of the RPO stuff, the quick stuff, it's just a quick slant. I mean, you can't even get in his own coverage if he wanted to get in his own coverage. There's a lot of different things that factor into it, but nobody generally goes out there and says, hey, I'm going to stick some player on A.J. Brown.
Right.
It's going to see a lot of different looks, a lot of different coverages. The good thing about AJ is, he can out physical people. So you saw Jefferson on what was that, Sunday night?
Monday
He
night,
got
yeah.
he Monday. No,
It's Sunday
Sunday.
night. Sunday night.
Sunday
Yeah.
night.
Sorry.
He got out physical, and they were letting him play. You can't do that to AJ. He's the biggest, strongest guy at the party, so to speak. So,
Right.
So you can't do some of that stuff to, a lot of people got upset on that play where Devontae hurt his wrist. Remember where he was out in the open and he got pushed down? That's what you're taught to do, man.
Right.
That's a completely legal play. You can do that stuff against most receivers. You can't do that stuff against AJ. So he's a tough matchup. One thing, there's two things the Eagles always think they have the advantage with. Two things: their offensive line and AJ Brown. They don't think anybody matches up with AJ.
Yep, I agree, and I think the same thing with the offensive line, which is why it could be a good big game for Saquon as it's been. All right, John, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to shift gears a little bit. We have Les Bowen coming up in about 25 minutes or so at 9:20, and we'll dive back into the Eagles-Packers game. What I want to do now, I thought Les was hour one, so I had this planned for hour two, but we're going to do it now. I want to run through a couple of the other games in playoff weekend, all right? And I want to get your take on how you think they're going to go play out and what this might look like. So let's start on the NFC side, John, and we'll start right in our division. Let's go to that Commanders-Buccaneers game. What do you think of that game? Who do you think ends up winning that football game?
I think the Bucs win. They're at home. I think they're an underrated team by most, maybe not by people in Philadelphia. I think they're overrated in Philadelphia because of their.
Even Jason Kelce was out there talking about them being a sleeper. Did you see that?
I did not, but it doesn't surprise me because the Eagles lose to the Bucs in the playoffs, and I think everybody conflates that with, the first time it was Tom Brady. Who gives a shit? Right? You weren't even supposed to make the playoffs.
There we go. We got our resident Bucs fan in here, Devin. Good to have you in here, brother.
Yeah. So, and I think there's a learning curve with Washington with a rookie quarterback. Baker's done it. Been there, having a good season. Bucky Irving's the guy I talked about. People laughed. He's had a phenomenal rookie season.
He's
phenomenal.
Yeah, really good player.
So and then Todd Bowles, he's always going to have a sound defense. So I like the Bucs in that game. I think I said it pretty early. I said anybody I would want first, Washington. For a number of reasons, Vic against a young quarterback, but think about what the Eagles lost in that game, and it took them 6 seconds to beat them, and everybody's they would have destroyed them if Jalen played the whole game. Yeah, I don't know why anyone was fearful in Philadelphia about Washington, but yeah, I think the Bucs will beat the Commanders.
I am going to take the Bucs in that game as well, John. Let's go to the other NFC game. Vikings at LA, but it's not in LA now. It's been moved to Arizona, so maybe LA for any home field advantage they might have had, which was probably marginal anyway at SoFi. That game's been moved, but Vikings at Rams. John, who do you like?
Upset alert.
Yeah, big time upset alert here.
If you called it an upset, I don't even know who's favorite. I assume the Vikings are favorite, but I don't even know because check that US. Yeah, I heard what Ryan Fitzpatrick said about Stafford. He'll decipher the unique defensive looks. And then I think I got a little bit of a feeling that was the Vikings Eagles 49ers game from last year. When the 49ers came in here and just beat the brakes off the Eagles, I think that was the start of doubting themselves and you had the collapse. I think that was the start of them doubting themselves.
Yeah. People were comparing them to the Lions, and then the Lions took them to the woodshed.
Yeah. So I just got a little bit of feeling that it's going to affect them mentally. Probably helps a little bit going to Arizona instead of Los Angeles. There'll probably be more Vikings fans there. Just a hunch. They're a good traveling group, team. They're a better team talent-wise, but I don't know. I just don't like the spot. So I'm leaning towards the Rams.
Let's head over to the AFC, John. Let's go to that Broncos-Bills game. Who do you like in that game? That's an interesting game because that Broncos defense is good. They got a great corner in Surtain. I'm not a huge Sean Payton guy, but he is a good coach. Obviously a Super Bowl winning coach, probably a Hall of Fame level coach over there. Who do you like in that game?
Buffalo. I mean, Josh Allen's just going to make a bunch of plays.
Yeah.
Same thing we're talking about with Washington. I don't know. For some people, Jaden Daniels is better than Bo Nix.
Right. They're giving, but Bo Nix they're putting the cart before the horse a little bit with him.
Yeah. The Broncos are a great story. Surtain's in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation. Eagles pushed back their schedule today again.
Is there a reason they do that? Maybe get like later in the day, like closer to what the game time would be? Is that what I'm thinking?
It's got to do with they're going to practice again at Lincoln Financial Field.
Okay.
It's got to do with the fields being frozen at the NovaCare complex.
And do they have a system that unfreezes them? Because I can't imagine that it would be less frozen and later in the day.
No, well, the field in Lincoln is heated, so there's never any problem over there. So it's got to do with the practice fields. And they can go inside, but they don't want to go inside. So it's got to do with that. But anyway, what were we talking about? Which game?
You picked it already. Broncos, Bills. We didn't move into the next one yet, but you like the Broncos or the Bills in that game?
Yeah. I mean, Josh Allen's having a tremendous year.
Is he your MVP?
I'm not allowed to say.
Oh, right. You put it in. So when can you say? Does it come out today? When's it come out?
No, that stuff doesn't come out to NFL honors, right?
Oh, right. Okay. Does it All Pro come out today? Is that when it's supposed to come out?
Yeah, it should come out today or tomorrow. Probably today. Because
I hope it comes out today. We'll see if any Eagles made it. I hope a couple. I think Saquon made it for sure, but we'll see about Zach Ball.
They're gonna have a lot of players on.
Who do you think?
Well, maybe not first team, but second team. I think Saquon's gonna make it. I think AJ will be a second team guy. I think.
How many receivers do they pick though?
6 total.
Okay, so 3 on each team. Yeah, I think AJ will make it then.
I think Lane will be a second team guy. I think Jordan will be a second team guy. Landon's got a shot. I got a lot of freaking talent. Jalen's got a shot. Jalen Carter. Cooper might be a first team All Pro. Keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on it because they pick legitimate
rookie slot corner.
They
pick All Pro.
They pick legitimate slot corner. Like you have to play in the side. They're not picking
They're not picking an outside guy. Right. Yeah.
So he's got a real shot, and if he's not, he'll certainly be a second team player, I would think.
Bro, that would be insane if our rookie corner gets first team All Pro.
And Zach Ballin obviously has got a shot. So
I think
a lot of players.
I have a bad feeling Zach Bowen is going to get chipped. We'll see what happens there. Let's go to the other two AFC games, John. Steelers-Ravens. This is a good matchup. I know the Steelers are not looking great, and they're probably going to be a one and done, but this is an AFC North battle right here, and those games are always close. Who do you like in that game, John?
They are, but boy, the Steelers are cooked, man. They're just not good offensively. I remember talking about the game here. I got that one right. They are so limited offensively. I know the issues with Baltimore in the playoffs. I know the games are always close against Pittsburgh, but I think this one's going to be a blowout. They're so much better. They're so much better.
Ravens lost Zay Flowers in that game.
They did.
Yeah.
But I mean, you talk about all Pro Bowl. Nobody has more Pro Bowl, all Pro level players than the Ravens. They have so much more talent. I can't imagine Pittsburgh winning that game.
Good stuff there. Chargers at Texans. I think the worst game of the weekend. Who do you like in that one?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's tough to say the Chargers are this proven commodity, but I do think there's a little bit of Jim Harbaugh is a proven commodity.
You good coach. Yeah.
Not only in college, but also at the NFL level. And, you know, Houston has had a good season, but certainly not up to their expectations. The hope was that they would take the next step, and they just haven't had a good season. Adjustments to CJ Stroud. I shouldn't say they're in the playoffs. They've had a good season, but, you know, from where they thought they were going to be, the adjustments have been made. He's had a much more difficult season. And I think it ends against the Chargers.
Good stuff there, Johnny Mac. So there's the predictions for the game, for the games this weekend, everybody. Looking forward to watching all of those. You had a lot of mixed picks in the chat, so looks like we got some good stuff here. Let me get to a couple super chats, John, before we move on. We'll have Les Bowen coming up in 15 minutes. Jack Dwight checks in. Jack, thank you, man. He says, if you can only re-sign one, Bond or Becton, why? Bond. Why do you have Jeff Stoutland?
Yeah, I would take Bond. I mean, you know, Beckman's had a very good season, but he's also, you know, got the troublesome D. You know, you drafted Tyler Steen. He was the starter before he got hurt. You know, how has that development been going? Whereas Bond, you know, he took this linebacking group to another level that we haven't seen since you got to go back 25 years. So, you know, Mekhi Becton's a big part of that offensive line. I don't want to downplay it, but if you're going to grade the offensive lineman, ironically, because of how big he is, but he's the run of the litter. He's the worst of the five. You know, you can make do. You can't find another Zach Bond.
No, I agree. Good stuff there, Jack. Thank you, brother. Brandon says, Jordan Love and Jalen Hurts aren't where they need to be in their progression. That's why the teams scaled back the offenses.
Well, it's a fair point. People don't want to hear it, but they both did it. I think he's 100% right.
I don't think
at least in the eyes of their particular teams. They don't scale back because they want to scale back. They feel they need to scale back. So at least in the team's eyes, Brandon is correct. So people can blame me. They often do. I'm not the one who scaled it back. The Eagles are. Same thing with Green Bay. I'm not the one who scaled it back. Matt LaFleur did. So Brandon is correct.
Good stuff, Brandon. Appreciate it, brother. Brian Pumper checks in. Brian, what's up, my man? Moore has been hindered by the quarterback play. We saw what he did with number 16. Number one needs to spend more time working on his game, vice going to jazz concerts.
We saw what he did with 16. My God, people, no offense, Brian, but
John, I do think what's
they
fair
ran the same damn play 10 times.
I know, but I think the
repetition in that game, people would lose their mind if that was a playoff game against a good opponent and you were running that same shit over and over and over. But you could do it. The Giants aren't even trying to win. You're trying to get out of there. I wouldn't conflate that into what Kellen Moore did with 16. Other than it's a nice job in a, not a high level circumstance. But as far as, him scaling back with Jalen, that's 100% correct. So, but I don't think what they did against the New York Giants was this, big unveiling. They ran the same damn bootleg 10 times.
Yeah. Vulnerable Vitality checks in. Vulnerable, thank you, brother. Real quick, before the show ends, you both are deserving of your flowers. I'd like to extend some gratitude, specifically to J-Mac. Can't say enough how much respect I and others have for your reporting. Very cool, Vulnerable. That's nice of you to J-Mac, who John, I think I know you get a lot of shit on your platforms, and people who give shit are always louder than the people who give respect. But there's a lot of people here, John, who love your reporting and appreciate the way you cover the team.
Well, I appreciate that. It is nice to hear it every once in a while, because you're right. I mean, the most vocal are usually the ones complaining, but
Yep.
I appreciate people that want honesty and objectivity. So, yeah. And, some of the things you'd like to spike the football, the Jalen Hurts stuff, where you're not allowed to say it the way you want to say it, but you try to say it as best you can. And then you have so many people outside.
I want J-Mac unleashed. J-Mac unleashed, where he doesn't care what anybody has to say.
Well, the problem is you can't burn sources. You can't, because then you don't have sources. So, that's the delicate balance you're always working with. But then you have outside voices saying, oh my God, he's not out of the concussion protocol, who don't even know what the concussion protocol is. So, it can get frustrating. So I appreciate when people say that. But anyway, thank you.
Good stuff, Vitality. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that very much. Good stuff from you. Eduardo checks in. Which wild card game are y'all excited for? Not Philly. Well, Philly's definitely the best. Philly Green Bay is definitely the best game of the weekend. But I'm going to go NFC East, Eduardo, and stay right here and go Commanders, Buccaneers, because I want to see what the hell those two teams are made of. And most importantly, if we beat the Packers and the Buccaneers handle business, we're playing the Bucs. So my guy, Devin Kramer, get ready, because we could have a matchup in a couple of weeks. So I'll be locked in on that one. That's probably the game I'm most excited for, John. What say you?
I don't know if I do believe, and it's not because we do the show. I've said it. The high profile, and the reason it's at 4:30 on Sunday is Packers Eagles. I think that's the best game by far, which has become, for people that don't know, the biggest window for the NFL. The late Sunday game is the biggest window, even bigger than Sunday night, from a TV ratings perspective. And then after that, I guess because it's the standalone game in Arizona, the moving and all the stuff going on, I guess, and it's interesting because I think we might have an upset, Rams, Vikings, I guess.
Rams, Vikings, good stuff there.
I don't like the AFC games at all.
Me neither. They're not that.
I'm like, I mean, Steelers Ravens is always fun because of the rivalry, but I don't like the AFC matchups at all.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I'm with you big time. Brian Pumper again. Brian, thank you, man. He says, I'm back on the Hertz wagon.
Oh,
if
wow.
he drops his nuts against the back, prove me wrong. Step it the F up. Hey, Brian, that is a super chat that I love and I agree with. All right. This is where your money is made. This is when the lights are the brightest. You want to shut everybody up? Good. Go out there, deliver the goods, and dominate the Green Bay Packers in a playoff matchup. And he'll earn his flowers. Brian, I like that super chat.
I'm not even sure either quarterback will be allowed to do that.
Well, one of the quarterbacks is going to have to make plays, John.
Well, they might. They'll both have to make plays in the fourth quarter. But as far as dominating, I don't think they'll be allowed to because of the way both teams play until it's needed in the biggest moment. And then, yeah, obviously at that point, you got to make plays.
Right. Pump, good stuff, man. I appreciate you. I think that's completely fair by you there. Got to ride with them in the playoffs here, Pumper, but let's go. You got to step it up here. Jeff Bone, the Bonehead, my guy Bonehead. He says, J-Mac, are you feeling better? You sound better. Look at that. The people are checking in with super chats, John, to make sure that you are feeling all right.
No, but thank you. A little bit better, but yeah.
It's lingering. It's lingering.
It is lingering. Not 100%. The problem is there's so many damn people sick. I think it's a circular thing. And I do my best to, wash my hands and all that stuff. But, when you're around a bunch of sick people, it's like grade school teachers.
J-Mac's
just a germ factory
on his face and shit. J-Mac's
a germ factory.
It's no longer going to be hand sanitizer. It's going to be freaking body sanitizer when J-Mac leaves the link. All right, good stuff, everybody. We're going to have to our commercial break. We got the great Les Bowen coming up. I can't wait to talk to Les. One more nice comment here. Diane checks in. Love you guys. I look forward to hearing you guys every day. Diane, thank you so much. I appreciate that. We got a lot of great listeners, John, who don't check in on the chat, but every once in a while they'll drop a comment. Hey, I listen every day. So I appreciate each and every one of you guys, even those who aren't in the chat. So good stuff. One more super chat here. Josh B. John, our winner of the yesterday's jacket giveaway. We've had 5 winners this week. So shout out to everybody that won. Twiz got a win. Josh B got a win. Flexing and Steppin got a win. I keep blanking on the first guy's name. It was like Air Raid or something like that. And then I'm blanking on the 5th person's name as well. But we have 5 winners this week. So congrats to everybody that won. Congrats, Josh B. Josh B says, any chance we keep Christian Parker next year? He's good. I like him.
I think he might get some coordinator interviews. So, all dependent how he interviews. And obviously, if he gets one, he's going to leave. That's how it works in this league. But yeah, he's well regarded inside the building. But and how he spoke about this pretty honestly back in the offseason, he said, look, if you're good, you're going to lose people. It's just the nature of it.
Yeah, that's true.
Alec Hallaby was interviewing for the Jets GM job. When things die down, Christian Parker might get some interviews. A lot of guys. So it's very rare when you can keep an entire coaching staff together. The good news is I think Vic doesn't want to leave, and he's too old anyway.
Yeah, I don't think Vic's going to be a head coaching candidate no matter how good he is.
No. There's a lot of ageism, unfortunately. Should be a head coaching candidate. But so I think he's going to stay, and I think Kellen, he's getting interviews, obviously. He's already gotten 2 requests. But I don't think he's one of the hot guys, But if Ben Johnson turns down jobs, who knows? But they'll lose some guys, and Christian would be one of the ones they're at risk of losing because he's an up and comer who's probably
he's a smart dude too. I remember listening to him sometimes in the office. You don't hear from the position coaches much now, but I remember listening to him a little bit earlier on. And he's definitely a smart dude. I mean, I like.
Yeah, and remember, I mean, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. We're
Yeah,
just
I
talking.
mean,
Cooper DeJean might be a first-team All-Pro, and he's going to get credit for that. So, sort of the way it works, but Vic will figure it out.
We'll see what happens. Josh B, good super chat, brother. With those two guys, you're probably not wrong. Christian Parker could be on his way out the door, but we'll see how it all plays out. I want to thank everybody again for being here this morning. Don't forget to hit that like button for us. It's one of the best things you can do to help us grow. We got the great Les Bowen coming up in a couple minutes, so we'll get to our commercial break now. Before I go to the break, let me tell you guys about the great people at BetUS. Go to betus.com.pa. Use the promo code YouTube150 for 150% sign up bonus, and you get 125% even on your second and third deposit, all up to $2,000. So deposit less and bet with more at BetUS. Go to betus.com.pa. That's betus.com.pa. They have the fastest payouts in the industry, 24/7 customer support, and they'll even give you your own custom account manager. So go check them out today, and a big thanks to them for sponsoring the 2-hour show today and all season long. Thank you, BetUS. We'll be back in 3 minutes on Birds 365.